Today on Locked On Red Wings, reacting to the end of season player interviews.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a podcast producer for the daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty says over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And today, guys, is the final day, that you can enter the Robbie Fabry game use stick giveaway.
Yes.
Again, as always, you just got to screenshot some evidence that you are subscribed to Locked On Red Wings on YouTube, and then send us that evidence via DM to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you can reply in the comments of my pinned tweet on Twitter or in the Facebook post I made when we started this giveaway a couple weeks ago. So there's a lot of avenues you can go to.
As long as you make it so
evidence.
We can see it, that's all that matters.
Pretty much. I've been trying to make sure I like every single time you guys do it.
Yeah,
so you guys
same.
are aware that we have seen it and you are entered. And big ups to Matt Lutz, the authentic director of the Little Caesars Arena team store, for hooking me up with the Robbie Fabry stick. I haven't been giving him enough props throughout the process because we've been so busy with all the draft profiles, but huge shout out to Matt, the authentic director of the team store, for hooking me up with this Robbie Fabry game use stick. And if you guys want, I know in the summer they're going to have their big equipment sale, and that's when a lot of that stuff goes on sale, including game use jerseys. So definitely check out the team store if you want game used, authentic stuff. Matt's your guy. Anyway, Scotty, today we're going to be doing the players have been doing the exit interviews all week long. We've had draft profiles, so I haven't really gotten to them. I don't think we're going to get to every single player in this episode just because we don't have enough time in 30 minutes to cram in an entire roster's worth of players interviews in one episode.
Well, there's also, I'm not sure there's content for like every single player on the roster's exit interviews either, but
well, you know what, with that comment, let's start with the guy who possibly gave us the least amount to talk about in the captain, Dylan Larkin. He is very
with
clearly,
the most time given,
about 25 minutes. He had clearly taken a cue out of the Steve Yzerman book of Talking to the Media, in which he just is very, very clearly making blanket statements, nothing to really break down. The overall sentiment that everyone has had is that, yes, the season was a step forward year. Yes, they would have liked to make the playoffs. They like Derek Lalonde and they want to get a bit tougher. That's the overall sentiment that pretty much everyone brought up to the table. The one thing I think Dylan Larkin brought up that was really interesting was when they asked him about what they thought about next year and what he thought about Newsy Lalonde, Derek Lalonde. Dylan said that one thing that Derek had been bringing up all year long that they believe is true going into next season is that this past year they started on the 0-yard line with a bunch of new guys in the locker room, a new coaching staff altogether. This year coming up, they're going to start on the 50-yard line, having known the guys in the locker room for the most part, knowing the system and being able to have another year under the belt to get used to the system, and that will lend to an improving year. And I really hope that that's the truth, because I don't see a lot of turnover on this roster this offseason. I think on the defensive end, you're going to see a lot of depth pieces move, and you can see some youth come in. But the core of this team is probably going to remain the same, barring like a huge trade that we hope will happen in the offseason. But there's a lot of truth to the fact that having another offseason on top of the year you just had learning the system will help in an ideal world, assuming the system is working, to further improve the team and the team's standing within the division.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the point he makes is super valid, and I think I view it more as if this is the new bar, right? Like if this is the new bottom of expectations, but if this is the new standard, then in theory, another year of the system, and honestly, more importantly than anything, another year of development for a lot of really key pieces of this core, then like, yeah, like I understand the sentiment there, and I understand that point. And I think your point is pretty valid too, like in the sense that the core of this team is the core of this team. Like you can name, I mean, well, I guess we kind of had that debate earlier in the in the season, how big the true core of this team is. But undeniably, like Larkin and Sider are undeniable locks for this core, and Sider getting another year under his belt. And I think most people have Raymond, despite some comments that were made by some of the fan base this year, and that's another year forward for him as well. So I I do think that there's still going to be a lot of additions. There's plenty of players that are, UFAs coming up that you have the money to go in and replace and improve on a lot of positional groups. But I mean, you are right in the sense that the core is the core, and anybody you add is going to be a piece added to surround the core that is very much in place. So I understand your side, and I guess in theory, then I kind of understand Larkin's side of understand where his comment is coming from as well.
Yeah, and I mean, for the purpose of this conversation, I think that when I say core, I don't necessarily mean like the molten core of this hockey
Sure.
team, which is those young guys plus Larkin. But you look at the guys who are still under contract. You're going to have David Perron return. Olimata's coming back. Andrew Copp, Ben Sherratt, they're going to be here. The bulk majority of this roster is returning outside of a few, like I said, depth pieces on the defense and your backup goalies. So there's not going to be a lot of roster turnover. So when I say core in this instance, I mean basically this team is returning with a few pieces changing here and there. It's
Yeah.
not because this last offseason was the first year where Yzerman was signing guys to multi-year contracts. They weren't just one and done years, Band-Aid players. So this team is returning basically the way it was. And I think that's also part of what Derek Lalonde meant when he said that this team's starting on the 50-yard line. Not just that it's going to be another year for the system to be learned, but another year of the same players to learn that system. Yeah. It's not going to be a turnover or a massive turnover like they had in years prior. So I like the fact that Derek Lalonde has said that. Another thing that Larkin brought up was one thing that's been brought up with every single player is the physicality. A lot of people believe that this Red Wings team, and
rightfully so,
this Red Wings team got pushed around a lot this season. They talked to him about asked him about the physicality, and he said that the team definitely, guys like Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond shouldn't have to look over their shoulder 24/7 to just be on the lookout for someone who's going to take a run at them. And, when they asked Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond that question, Moritz Seider basically kind of was like, I didn't feel as if I had been like targeted here or there. There's a lot of stuff that happens after the play, but that comes with the game. And Raymond basically echoed that sentiments, although he a little bit more was of the mindset, like, yeah, that kind of stuff does happen from time to time that you kind of got to keep an eye out. But the overall sentiment by everyone is that like the team does need to kind of be able to push back more.
Well, yeah, I think it's impossible to be around the team and not share that sentiment. And like, I don't want to go on a whole, 10-minute rabbit hole here. I know we got to go to break soon, but like, yeah, dude, I got anybody who watched this team is well aware of that. And that would lead me to believe that anybody that's on the ice and in that locker room and playing every night certainly felt that as well. Like this was, I don't know. I mean, they won games. They hit the 80-point total. Like, I'm not making it sound like they were, it wasn't unwinnable games. But like, if they went up against any team that showed, that they were going to be physical first and they were just going to, like, do you remember playing the Wild? They embarrassed you. They just rinsed the team because of just bully ball, basically. And like any team that matched that in a physicality sense. I mean, we saw what happened in Ottawa, right?
Yes.
2 must-win games against Ottawa. If they win these games, we're not trading Bertuzzi away. They get walked off the ice back-to-back nights, got outscored like 12 or 13-3 or whatever in 2 games. Like, yeah, man, I I think it's impossible for anyone that put any effort into following this team this year, or certainly playing for this team this year, to not understand that you watch the playoffs. You watch the playoff game.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, dude. Like there's like no chance. Like you need that. You objectively you still need that very much in the game of hockey, and they don't have that anywhere. Like Adam Ernie was basically kind of their enforcer. Like Ben Sherratt, who again like did nothing against those like Wild and Ottawa games. Like they, even if it's just one player, like they need some sort of physicality, and you would like it to be multiple.
So when we come back, Scotty, we're going to transition to talking about Andrew Copp coming out of the break, because I think that he had the most to say and the most interesting things to say with the season-ending availability. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar. Something exciting is coming to Built.com on April 22nd. I don't have all the details yet, but the excitement is real, and it's something you won't want to miss. If you know how Built works, they have the most incredible protein bars in the world, and they do amazing flavor drops with unreal flavors in limited quantity. So mark your calendars and head to Built.com on Saturday, April 22nd to be one of the first to discover what all the hype is about. I can't wait to see what the new flavor is. Make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order. That's Built.com. And if you don't want to wait for that limited time flavor, you can head to Sam's Club and Walmart as well. Pick up a 13-bar box and 4-bar box, respectively. You guys won't regret it. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Pen isn't working. Super cool. I don't need to write down my timestamps or anything. Okay, there we go. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. My mouth works, yeah.
Mouse.
Oh, my mouse is working. Yeah, it is working today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Andrew Copp, Scotty. Just like, let's go right into that.
The other day, we were trying to record a show and his mouse wouldn't work. I was just asking if your mouse worked, dude.
I thought you said your mouth works, as if you're being like sarcastic.
Oh, well.
Which is also on brand for you, so you can't really blame me for thinking that.
I do blame you.
Okay.
You should think very highly of me.
My case in point right there. So you brought up the Ottawa games, and that's something that Andrew Copp brought up as well. To be fair, that's the media brought it up, and then he just spoke about it. Pretty much anytime a player brought something up in an interview, it's because the media brought it up first. But he did kind of echo your sentiments there, Scotty, that, those Ottawa games, they came out like it was the first round of the playoffs. They came out playing physical, and they were hitting guys late, but not quite late enough to draw a penalty. And he said that the Red Wings, that they had got frustrated. Shell-shocked is the term he used, to be precise. And that led to ticky-tack calls going back their way. And he said that when they traded Bertuzzi, and to a lesser extent, they said they were a little bit shocked about Hronek. When they traded Bertuzzi, it wasn't really a surprise to the locker room, because they felt that they didn't earn the right to keep him, basically.
Yeah. Well, are you going to find any disagreement within the fan base? Like that, we all knew that. Like that's something that we talked about for the entire week leading up to those games. And we talked about how, those two Sens games were probably two of the most important Red Wings games in, not to be dramatic, but like years. And how winning those two games, or even winning one of two, could have changed the entire trajectory of the season. Or at least like you take the first one and then you lose the second one like 4-3 instead of just getting the absolute doors blown off you on back-to-back nights. Like the style in which they lost certainly didn't help either. So I'm surprised that more people in these weren't asked specifically about those games, to be honest, or that they weren't brought up more outside of, Copp and maybe not that Larkin brought it up specifically, but kind of like, around that, like trade deadline questions. Like I'm surprised it wasn't talked about more, because I think everyone was well aware of the magnitude of those two games. And not only losing, but getting blown out twice, I think pretty much sealed the deal on the fate of the rest of the season.
He also spoke a lot about his own game. He talked about how, he only scored 9 goals this season, where he's coming off a year where he scored, I think, 22 the
Yeah.
year prior. And basically, he said it was a combination of two factors. The surgery, for one, he said that he played all 82 games this season, which is incredible. And he mentioned that was incredibly hard to do coming off of a surgery, recovering throughout part of the season and with no training camp. He said that was hard to do, but also that the lack of scoring came from the fact that he was a bit pass happy this year. He set a career high in assists this season, which I don't think people will give him enough credit for. Yeah, he became a little bit more pass happy with it. And he said that that's something that he'll address to try and balance out in the offseason. And he also kind of called out, he said the PKA improved after about the first half of the season. But when it came to the power play, it was power play unit 1 that was scoring most of the goals. And so that his unit, power play 2, is going to have to work on, one, solidifying their line. He said that the constant carousel of players kind of hurt, the confidence, but also just needs to get better at and more consistent at scoring goals. And I love the candidness of which Andrew Copp spoke, because some players, and I'm not faulting Dylan Larkin for speaking the way they are, because media has a tendency to take things out of context, and make it worse than it sounds. And so there's a reason why players are trained to basically give these blanket statements, that don't really say anything. But I really appreciated Andrew Copp. I got the word. We're there.
Yeah, they're blanket statements for sure.
I kept skipping over the N. It's blanket.
No, you're right though. I mean, that's literally are trained to do so. And yeah, I was pretty open about the fact that after like American Thanksgiving, maybe it took a little bit longer. Maybe it was more around like Christmas time, as Brian says, American Christmas. Maybe it was closer to around there, but he really did pick it up, and then like his production, and then once he hit that, he didn't really like fluster the rest of the season. Like he was consistently in the last, I don't know, 2/3 of the season. If you want to say that the first third was kind of a slow start, I think it's safe to say like the last 2/3 of the year, he was pretty consistently one of the top performers on the team every night, even if it wasn't, filling up the back of the net, obviously, as you mentioned, like bringing him in he was doing what we brought him in to do. And I think that he was one of the better performers on the team there for at least, again, like the last 2/3, maybe last half of the season. So I'm hoping no, like surgery over the off season, no, like missing the preseason, then just kind of getting thrown into the fire. We get a full healthy, camp and preseason, and then leading up to the regular season for Copper this year, so that we can see what he can really do with a full healthy year under his belt.
Yeah, and he also spoke a lot about the young guys on the team as well. Basically, he said that he and Joe Veleno had become good friends over the course of the year, because he was like trying to mentor Veleno and was like really hard on him, trying to help him do the little things right, and saying that the production will come with the little things. If he's doing everything else right, the production will follow suit, is essentially what he told him. And say that he and Veleno became good friends. He said Mo Sider was as advertised, if not better, as well as saying that with guys like Lucas Raymond, the real step forward is between years 2 and 3, not between years 1 and 2, which is like something we've been also preaching all season long. So also he sung the praises of Rasmussen, because they mentioned that once Rasmussen joined Copp's line, like that line got better. And he's like, well, yeah, he goes to the corner and retrieves the puck. He said he was just a great forechecker. So that's not anything new. I mean, there was a story that came out, halfway through the season, maybe 3/4 of the way through the season, right before he got hurt, saying that like every single center was trying to convince the loan to allow Rasmussen to play on their line, because everyone loved playing with Rasmussen.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, just the other day, right? Yeah. When you're talking about highlights or biggest success stories of the season, Rasmussen and Walman are probably in some order 1 and 2. I think it's kind of hard to, unless you want to count like locking up Larkin long term in there. I think if you're talking, especially if you're just talking player development, that's easily comfortably 1 and 2 there on Walman and Rasmussen. So yeah, that I remember that when that story happened in the regular season, and we talked about it for like a week straight, because we were just so pumped that that Ras was productive and that everybody liked playing with him.
Speaking of Rasmussen, we'll get to his comments on the other side of this break. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about eBay Motors. A championship team is about each player making a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for that green check. So the next time you need those parts, again, head over to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that your part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll get back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Can you just do the let's ride normally?
I just can't. Segment 3, Locked on Red Wings podcast. Every single time I read it, I just think of Russell Wilson. And I can't help but I tried not to. That's why I paused. I was like, don't say it like that. Don't say it like that. Let's ride. I can't not. It's impossible. It
Is possible. I do it every day too. I don't know if you know that, but
let's ride. No, that still sounded like it. I can't do it. I'm physically incapable. Let's ride. That how you do it? How do you do it?
Let's ride.
Stop. Okay. Michael Rasmussen, he said that he is almost fully recovered and he'll be allowed to go back to 100% workload very shortly. And that no, his kneecap was not shattered into 100 pieces, despite what some people were saying. But he could not put any weight on it so it could heal. And also that he loves the new coaching staff and that New Zealand alone kept them even keeled throughout the entire season. Even when wins happened, he kept them from getting too big of a head. And when losses happened, he kept them from getting too down on themselves, which I think is an important quality that any head coach should have. Right, Scotty?
Yeah, that's you'll be pressed to find more important qualities in a coach. Obviously, the X's and O's side of it is probably the most important. But when you're talking about the personality side of the job, you're a leader of men, and hearing that out of several of the players, in their interviews, hearing the singing the praises of the new coaching staff, especially when you start hearing it from guys who have maybe been here a couple of years through the previous regime as well. It's definitely nice to hear. I completely agree.
Bro, what happened? When we hopped on to record, the Florida Panthers had just taken a 3-2 lead at the beginning of the third period. It's 6-2 right now.
Oh my goodness.
What happened?
How you like that? How you like game 1 in Toronto?
No, I loved it. Did you see Bert scored his first career playoff goal?
Yes, I did. Did you see his pass?
Oh, dude, he's been unreal.
The pass is even
I'm
crazier
so
than the goal.
conflicted
Did you see
watching
him
the
break the stick?
Every single time he's
Stole a
out
stick.
there, I'm rooting for Bertuzzi. I'm not rooting for Boston, but unfortunately, it's a catch-22. Anyway, back on topic here. Jake Walman also spoke, and one of the things he just talked about was that one of the things that led to his success was just the fact that the Red Wings and his teammates gave him the opportunity to become the player that he is, and that was something he didn't say this, but well, I won't say it because he didn't say it, but the Red Wings gave him the opportunity to succeed that maybe he didn't get elsewhere.
Yeah, 100%. I don't really have too much to add. I'm glad that we were able to do that though, and I'm glad that it worked out.
Yeah, he said that what makes him so good with Seider is that they're the same type of player, which is actually really funny to me in a way, because before the season started, we were talking about matchups as if filling those weaknesses that you and your partner would have. Like we were saying, you put Hronik with Oli Mata because Hronik and Oli Mata are different types of
Do you remember
players.
the peanut butter and jelly era of Oli Mata and Philip Hronik?
But at the same time, different strokes for different folks, right? Sometimes that can lead to miscommunication between your partner and yourself when you have different play styles. You saw that with Ben Sherratt and Moritz Seider. They weren't the same type of player, and so it led to miscommunication. To Jake Walman, he said that the thing that made him and Seider so good together is because they were the same type of player, not exactly the same, but the same player-ish. they knew where each other were. They knew what each other was going to be doing because their brains worked on the same wavelength. And I just find that so interesting that in any sport, but like especially the game in hockey, sometimes opposites attract, but sometimes you get two positives, and then that's just like whew, super great together.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, well, we saw early in the season, we saw the defensive pairing kind of carousel, for lack of a better term, and then like injuries happen, and there was even more of it and whatnot, and it is really nice to know. We kind of talked about it with Prashant the other day. Like, it is really nice to know that throughout this season, like obviously you're going to have Sider for hopefully the next decade plus, but on top of that, you found a ringer on the left side in Walman, and like hopefully Edvinsson can take steps forward and whatnot, and Mata's probably definitely not part of the long term defensive core, but like that's another depth piece that you can put on the left side. Like it's a looking where this defense was 8 months ago, 12 months ago, and then looking at what the defensive core looks like now, you have three legitimate defenders that you can pencil in for the foreseeable future on this blue line. It's a fantastic sign. I know I got a little off track there with what your original point
No,
was,
it's
but
all relevant though.
I think that it's that it's kind of like one and the same just because of the development of Walman and the fact that, oh, Jake Walman plays well with everyone. Well, let's put him on the top pairing then and see if that theory holds strong. And it did. And so I think that that's awesome that, if you get a better left side D man you want to pair with Sider, great. We are so confident that Jake Walman can be an elite second pairing left side defenseman as well. So yeah, it was I think a very successful season in that regard.
Yeah, and he also in talking about Edvinsson basically said he's a great player and that he wishes he was at that size, which I
Yeah,
thought was funny. Also, apparently Jake Walman loves Texas Roadhouse because that got brought
really.
up. I can't even remember how that got brought up, but he said that when he's in the States, he always makes a point to go to Texas Roadhouse because of how much he loves it. And I thought that was great. Like he's
That's
right.
awesome.
He's
I
objectively
love little
correct.
like tidbits like that.
Yeah. Also, I don't know why, but I keep forgetting that Michael Rasmussen is Canadian. I think it's because his last name is Rasmussen, so I just assume he's like Swedish or something in the back of my mind. Because when I started watching his interview and there was no accent, I'm like, oh yeah, he's Canadian. Just something about his name just screams like Swedish to me. And then every time he opens his mouth, I get like shell shocked. I'm like, what's going on? Where am I right now?
I don't know. Unless the name is like super obviously not Canadian, I kind of just assume that most hockey players are going to be Canadian at this point. So I don't share that sentiment, but I certainly understand.
Doesn't Rasmussen sound like it could be like European though?
Yeah,
Okay,
I
that's all I
guess.
needed. I just needed that. I need my confirmation bias. Um,
Okay.
the final thing, when Lucas Raymond spoke again, he said basically all the same things. He did think that this was a step in the right direction for him this year. He says he think he was doing a lot of the little things correctly. Um, but when they asked him about like physicality and what he's going to do in the offseason, if like hitting the gym will be a focus, he said that no, it'll be, some guys like hitting the gym, some guys like staying on the ice. For him, it's about balance. He actually kind of likes being on the ice a little bit more. He says it's a lot of fun for him, but it is a goal to get bigger and stronger, but that's not particularly because of any results from this year, but that's just because that's a normal goal to have.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
for sure. And I mean, we've talked about looking ahead so much, but I'm glad that we get this time to kind of look back one last time before we can just put this season behind us and kind of fully focus on next year. And I'm sure the players feel the same way.
yeah, absolutely. There are other guys that we didn't have time to get to today, like David Perron, Oli Mata, Ville Husso. I think we should definitely do Ville Husso at a later date if we have
Sure.
time. Trying to think if there's anyone else we forgot. We didn't really get to any of Sider's comments either. Sider's not playing at Worlds, but Raymond is. Jake Walman is playing for Worlds as well, but we don't know for which team yet. They asked him about it, and he said it's not his news to break. So he's either playing for Team Canada or Team USA because he has dual
Right.
citizenship. So that's really interesting. Worlds is going to be fun, and it'll give us some content. We love free. We take free content around here.
Absolutely.
Larkin's not going to play at Worlds. I think Copp said he's not because he's still trying to get to 100%. So just thought there you go. Your Worlds roundup there at the end.
Yeah.
All right.
Word.
Good episode, buddy.
I agree.
Any final thoughts?
We ball.
We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. We are doing another draft profile, this time with Max Bultman of the Athletic Detroit. You know him, you love him. We certainly do. And it'll be a good episode. And then we'll send you off into the weekend. So stay tuned. Oh, and we'll announce the winner of the Robbie Fabry stick giveaway. Biggest, almost buried the lead there. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah,
same
definitely.
time.
Again, last chance to enter.
Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.